Hi, and welcome to our YouTube channel. This is How to Learn Spanish, and I'm Itziar. In today's video, we are going to explain how to conjugate the present Spanish tense. But first, we are going to explain what conjugation means and what are the different types of verbs involved in conjugation. Because that is going to affect conjugation, and you should be taking this first step before you learn how to conjugate. Please remain till the end of the video where we work out how to conjugate Spanish regular verbs in the present tense with 4 different examples. We are teachers and tutors specialized in beginners. If you are learning Spanish, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any lesson or tip new to the channel. Also, please like so we make similar videos online. Please visit our Grammar and Learn section in www.howtounlockspanish.com for grammar revision exercises and Spanish tips. So let's dive in. In today's video, we are going to learn how to conjugate the present tense for regular verbs. So first, we are going to learn what does conjugation mean, or what does conjugate mean. Then we are going to learn what are the main types of verbs involved in conjugation. So that means regular or irregular verbs, are, and ir verbs, and reflexive verbs or non-reflexive verbs. And then we are going to work out the present tense for regular verbs with 4 different examples. So I see a lot of videos and I read a lot of websites telling you how to conjugate the present, how to conjugate the past tense, but I think the first thing you should know is what do we mean by conjugation or to conjugate. So the Spanish verbs, you should know that they change their form, normally their ending, depending on who is performing the action and the period of time the action took place. So the verbs normally will keep their stem and change their ending, and their ending will be chosen depending on who is performing the action and when the action took place. For example, if I am the one performing the action, if I eat, I will say yo como. So I will use the stem com, but I will change the ending like o. So I will say yo como, I eat. If it's you eat, so you are the one that is eating, I will have to say tú comes. I will have to keep the stem com but change the ending to es to express you eat. So normally I will only say comes because you is implicit in the ending. Then I will also have to choose the ending depending on when the action is taking place. For example, if I want to say I eat, like I normally eat, I will say yo como. So I will choose the ending o, which is the ending for the present tense for I eat, for me. But if I want to say I ate, I will have to say yo comí. I will have to choose the ending y, which is the ending for I did something in the past. So I will say comí. So adding the proper ending is what we call to conjugate. So the first thing you should know in order to conjugate a verb is what kind of verb you are dealing with. Is it a regular verb? Is it an irregular verb? Is it an are, or ir verb? Is it reflexive or is it not reflexive? So what's a regular verb? Regular verbs are the ones that follow a pattern. Normally, the majority of verbs follow a pattern to be conjugated in a certain tense. This means that most of the verbs will behave in the same way and use the same endings. Please be aware that regular verbs in the present, for example, may not be regular verbs in the future simple tense. Therefore, for every tense, we need to learn which verbs are irregular verbs, and we will need to learn their conjugation in particular because they won't follow the common pattern. They are a little naughty. So how do I know if it's irregular? Sadly, there is no way to know. For every tense, we must learn the pattern for the regular verbs and then learn the main irregulars. Learn like a list of irregular verbs and their own conjugations. Normally, it is very useful to learn the regular tense and learn the irregular verbs by using them when we learn a different topic. So if we learn the topic daily routine, we will start learning the verbs related to the daily routine. If we are learning the topic holidays, we might learn the list of verbs related to holidays, and if they are regular or irregular verbs. On the other hand, some of the most useful verbs, we may say, are the most irregular verbs in many of the tenses, like hacer is irregular in the present, is irregular in the preterite, that is one of the past tenses. And ir, for example, is very irregular. Ser and estar are very irregular verbs in many tenses. And those are very useful verbs in everyday life. So once we know we have a regular verb or irregular verb, we need to know if this verb is an adverb, verb, or irverb. So depending on the tense we are going to conjugate, it is important to know the set of infinitive it belongs to. The set of infinitive is are, or ir. And what's an infinitive? So the infinitive is the neutral form of the verb without any conjugation. So the ending is not saying any person, any tense, or whatever. And there are only three possible endings for the infinitive. Your verb might have an infinitive ending in a, your verb might have an infinitive ending in or your verb may have an infinitive ending in ir. For example, tomar, to take, has ar ending, which means it's an ar verb. Comer is an verb, and vivir is an ir verb. So depending on the tense we are going to conjugate, it is important to know the set of ending it belongs to, because the set of endings may vary. For example, the present tense does have one different set of endings for every set of verbs. So the endings are going to be different if we are facing an are verb, verb, or an ir verb. You can understand this better when we start learning how to conjugate, for example, the present tense. So the regular or irregular verbs can be are, or ir verbs at the same time. So the last issue that may affect the conjugation is if the verb is reflexive or not reflexive. What is reflexive and what does it mean? Some Spanish verbs are reflexive. The reflexive verbs explain actions carried out by and for oneself. It's like having the reflection from a mirror. You look at the mirror and you receive the reflection of the mirror. For example, taking a shower. The verb duchar is reflexive when we mean I shower myself. In Spanish, I shower myself will have to be me ducho. So the special thing about the reflexive verbs is that they are conjugated as regular and irregulars and are be verbs, but they will need to use a pronoun together with the normal stem and ending. So, as a wrap-up, to learn Spanish grammar, I need to know what is to conjugate and I need to study different types of verbs. Conjugation means to choose the correct ending to assemble the correct form of the verb depending on the person who is carrying out the action and when the action takes place. And there are types of verbs that affect conjugation. One is regular and irregular verbs, which depends on if the verbs are following the pattern or not following the pattern for certain tense. Then we have the sets of verbs are, ir, which are the verbs that can be organized in sets depending on the ending of their infinitive, and this will affect if they are going to be conjugated with one set of endings or the other. And then we have the reflexive verbs. Some verbs are reflexive. This means that the person who is doing the action is also receiving the action. So he's doing the action to his own self or its own self. So let's get to it and see if we understand what every type of verb means and how conjugation works. If we have a look at the present tense, we can see we have 3 different sets of endings depending on how the infinitive ends. So for the verb, for example, hablar has an infinitive ending in ar, so we will have to choose the endings in the first column. Then for comer has an er ending. We have to choose the second column. And for vivir, which is to live, we have to choose the third column. Depending on who is talking, for example, we will have to choose the first row, the second row, the third row, the fourth row. See? So these are regular verbs because they follow these patterns. They follow the pattern of endings. Irregular verbs won't follow the pattern or won't follow it completely. So let's get to it and let's try to do hablar in the present tense. So please follow me, or in case you feel confident, just pause the video, try to do it on your own, and then just play the video again and check. So for hablar, we obtain the stem by just removing the ending of the infinitive. So hablar, we take out ar, and we have habl, the letters in black. And then we add the proper ending, which is o. So I say hablo. For tú, I do the same thing. I get the same stem and I add as. Because it's an adverb, I add as. I don't add es. Es is the ending for er or ir verbs, not for are verbs. So es tú hablas. Él habla. Nosotros hablamos. Vosotros habláis. Ellos hablan. So I'm choosing the endings of the are verbs all the way. If I want to conjugate tomar, which is to take, I will have to use the same endings and say tomo, tomas, toma, tomamos, tomáis, toman. For comer will be yo como, tú comes, él come, nosotros comemos, vosotros coméis, ellos comen. For vivir will be yo vivo, tú vives, él vive, nosotros vivimos, vosotros vivís, ellos viven. As you can see, the easiest of the present tense is that when I talk about what I do, I always have the same ending. If it's an adverb, er verb, or ir verb, I'm going to use always o. And then er and ir sets also share 3 more endings. So maybe these tips help you learn the endings. But what's going to help you is to do a lot of exercises. So practice, practice, practice. So this is the end of the video. Don't forget to like it if this video helped you and you want us to make more videos. If you want to learn more about Spanish grammar or tips, please subscribe to our channel, and you can also have a look to our website www.howtounlockspanish.com, and you can visit our grammar section. Also, don't forget that we do have a book that includes a lot of summaries, exercises, solutions, and flashcards for A1 level or beginner's level. is very helpful and is very affordable, and you can just buy it through our website, but it's bought in Amazon. It's only about £5 or equivalent.